You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Now get the guns, the drugs from my generation. I'll take the fall, the saints, the confirmation. Yeah, it's a sex, the god, the fakes, the fraud, they're messing with me. Come on, come on, come on, let's get it out. Move to the music, play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Welcome back to Reliving the War, and welcome to the 12th of October 1998. We've got Raw coming from Uniondale, New York, while Nitro takes place in Chicago, Illinois. We've got an interesting Raw this week featuring a tournament to crown a new IC champion. And Nitro's a promo-heavy episode this week as the company promote their upcoming Halloween Havoc show. Let's get started with Nitro's first 60 minutes as always. Nitro opens up with Eric Bichoff telling arena security to not let Ric Flair in the building. Our guy here's like, who the hell are you to tell me what to do? And Eric says, you know who I am, moron. Outside, Bischoff calls Doug Dillinger an absolute low-tier disappointment. So Eazy-E's gone through the trouble of getting Doug some extra security guards. Bischoff tells the guards to look out for a guy with white hair and a big nose. He's gonna be surrounded by some of the ugliest people the world has ever seen, and when security find this styling and profiling goon, he must be stopped from entering the arena. The next 10 minutes or so are spent recapping last week's Nitro and Thunder. The Hitman Bret Hart's challenge Sting to a match at Halloween Havoc. Schiavone announces that tonight we're going to see Goldberg versus the Giant for the WCW title. And we also see some footage of WCW and NWO superstars at Wall Street promoting WCW credit cards. Imagine going on a dinner date and you're all like, don't worry babe, I'll pay with my Goldberg MasterCard. You'd be absolutely guaranteed to get some action. Our first match is Lodi versus Wrath. I sure do hope Wrath was allowed to leave the arena early every week. 1 minute and 30 seconds, Lodi gets annihilated and Wrath wins it with a meltdown. After the bout, the man called Ming appears and he and Wrath start beating the crap out of each other on the rampway. This also happened on Thunder this past week. Next up, Dale Torborg took on Kendall Windham. It's during matches like this when you really begin to wonder why Nitro was a 3-hour program. It's an absolute filler match that no one cared about. Dale wins it with a bicycle kick. It was so intense that it made Dale fall on his ass. It actually looks like Dale might have hurt his knee here, so not a great match for the future Kiss Demon. The fans absolutely hated this one, by the way. A very hostile crowd in attendance for Nitro tonight, and they don't let up for the next promo. Sting comes down to the ring and he calls out Bret Hart and Hollywood Hogan. This was fine, the audience loved Sting as always, but when Warrior comes out they boo him relentlessly, and the more Warrior talks, the more the fans boo. It's still a pretty cool moment though. The Warrior says it's amazing how far a little dab of paint can take you. He's watched Sting from afar and he admires and respects what his old Blade Runner partner has achieved over the years. Warrior understands that WCW's Sting's battleground, but Warrior's got himself a match with Hogan at Halloween Havoc. So tonight, Warrior requests, no, he demands, that he stands alongside his old partner so the Blade Runners can take on Hogan and Hart tonight on Nitro.
Warrior Channel!
That was the overview of this promo. Warrior couldn't help himself and he had to add in nonsense about great battles and the will to win. Standard Warrior stuff, but the crowd completely rejected Warrior tonight, and it's like I talked about last week, the Warrior experiment continues to provide diminishing returns. Wood from the Hood then came out to cut a promo. He says Hollywood be the man, Wood rules wrestling, and the Giant's here to take the world belt away from Goldberg and bring it back to the NWO. Everything's going to be as it should when Nitro ends tonight. Hogan heard Sting and Warrior's promo. Hulk talked to the Hitman, and Hogan said it would be a pleasure to beat up those two cartoon characters tonight in the Windy City. The ultimate encounter happens tonight on Nitro. The tag match is on, NWO for life. And look, I've been burned enough times with these big main events on Nitro, these dream matches that turn out to be absolute cack, so I'm not getting my hopes up and you shouldn't either.
Sweet!
Backstage, the Horsemen's limo pulls up and Bischoff tells Flair to get back in the vehicle and beat it. Flair's brought along Bruce MacArthur, the guy who owns the United Center, so you know where this is going. Bischoff still wants everyone to leave, but the Horsemen are Bruce's special guests tonight. The Horsemen own the arena for Nitro and they've got a luxury skybox with women and champagne. The cleanup job's gonna be immense. Bruce tells Eric to stand aside. Eric threatens to sue Bruce and the Horsemen, but he gets nowhere. Bischoff ends up taking it all out on Double D Doug Dillinger, the absolute worst security man in the history of security men.
East to west, north to south, everyone wants the big bratwurst in their mouth.
Oh, big bratwurst.
Alex Wright takes on Fit Finlay next on Nitro. Raw kicks off with an Outlaws vs Animal and Droz tag team match. Alex says he's the best wrestler in Europe and this knobhead Fit Finlay ended his father's career. While that's not necessarily true, Fit Finlay did indeed wrestle Steve Wright, and you can watch one of their catch matches right now on YouTube. Finlay attacks early and the match goes to the outside where Finlay remains in control. Back in the ring, Alex performs a sunset flip and Finlay kicks out at one. So Das Wunderkind hits a clothesline followed by a body slam. Finlay comes back with a short arm clothesline before dropping Alex across the top rope. He then gets kicked in the face when coming off the top turnbuckle, and the match comes to an abrupt end when Alex launches Finlay into the air and Finlay snaps his neck across the ropes. Alex cheats when pinning Fit and it's all over. Alex wins via pinfall. After the bout, the British Bulldog attacks Das Wunderkind. Old Alex got Pearl Harbored from the front. Davey and Finlay attack Alex in the ring because they're two sore losers, and Finlay decks Davey when Alex gets out of the ring. Davey's left standing there wondering what on earth just happened, so no one really came out of this one looking good, did they?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages.
Shut up.
So Billy Gunn's back in DX and he gives absolutely no reason for his departure 2 weeks ago, nor a reason for coming back. He just says he's back and if you're not down with that, yada yada yada. It's weird and I can't remember if DX ever come back to this, but I don't think they do. So yeah, just accept it and move on. Droz represents LOD 2000 tonight while Hawk goes on commentary. He says he's sober and the reason he fell off the rails was because of his addiction to pain medication. He just went overboard and he took it too far. He says he's happy for Droz to step in for a while as Road Dogg gets power slammed, and Jerry Lawler rubs it in a little by saying Hawk's place in LOD was taken away from him. Animal comes in, he gets poked in the eye, B.A. Billy Gunn takes over from Road Dogg and he manages to DDT the Road Warrior before tagging out again. A 6-man tag gets announced here for Judgment Day, LOD 2000, including Droz, versus the Biker Michael Likers plus Mr. AOLMessenger.com Netscape Navigator Paul Ellering. And speaking of which, the DOA run down to attack Hawk, and that's how the match ends. Animal and Droz rush out to help their partner, and the ref rules it a no contest. The Headbangers then appear in the ring, and Road Dogg gets a boombox broken over his head. The Headbangers are getting a shot at the tag titles at Judgment Day, so it's all go to kick off Raw this week. The match itself was absolutely nothing though. Before the match took place, we saw Mr. McMahon arriving to the arena. He's only out of hospital, but he's speeding around in his white Corvette, and his little stooges are here to help him into his wheelchair, his electric WWF branded wheelchair. Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler then explained that we're going to have a one-night tournament to crown a new Intercontinental Champion, but Vince McMahon hasn't revealed who's going to participate. Vince got himself settled in his private room, and he looks on as Kane arrives to the building, the tracksuit wearing Devil's favorite demon. Ooh, Steve Blackman versus Ken Shamrock. The motherfuck dojo implodes once again. On Nitro, we've got a trios luchador match. Chavo, Psychosis, and Super Colo versus Ciclope, La Parca, and Villano 5. Dirty Ken Shamrock gets in a cheap shot before the opening bell, and Sensei Steve makes Kenny Boy pay with a dropkick. An elbow to the back makes Ken's eyeballs pop out, and just as Steve was about to take flight to battle some fiends on the streets of New York, Ken catches him for a power slam. Blackman still dealing with a knee injury, but Ken doesn't care about that. Shamrock attacks his master and he targets the injured body part, and things aren't looking too good right now for the god among men. Still, Blackman won't give up. He hits Shamrock with a clothesline before morphing into a torpedo. The torpedo almost blows Shamrock's shoulder out, but Blackman wasn't using 100% of his power. He's feeling some sympathy for this lost warrior. Blackman tries to talk sense into Kenny Boy. He wants him to once again come back to the dojo, but that no good bastard captures Steve and he applies the ankle lock. Blackman has no choice. He has to tap out. So Shamrock advances in this IC title tournament, and we're going to see him wrestle again very soon. After the bout, the Blue Blazer shows up. That's right, Owen Hart's old WWF character. The Blazer attacks both Ken Shamrock and Steve Blackman, and when the Blazer runs away, Shamrock feels embarrassed. So embarrassed that he puts Steve in another ankle lock. That's it, this guy's now my most hated WWF superstar. That's some ultra heat right there, folks. Over on Nitro, it's a 6-man tag featuring some of WCW's luchadors. You know the drill here, it's best just to check out a few high spots. We got the usual multiple dives through and over the top rope, though La Parca fell when standing on the apron. This was intentional, by the way. After everyone had gone airborne, it went back to the ring where Psychosis saved Super Colo with a diving leg drop to Villano 5. There's some tandem suicide dives from Chavo and Super Colo and a senton splash to the outside from Psychosis. And then the Latino World Order marched down to the ring as Chavo wins the match with a tornado DDT. Jam Master El Dandy's joined the LWO, it seems, and Eddie's out here to recruit a new member. It's Psychosis. Eddie says that this match was a perfect example of Eric Bichoff making the luchadors fight each other for peanuts. He challenges anyone from the NWO to come down and fight Psychosis with the same heart that he just displayed. And Eddie reminds Eric that the LWO is the future whether Eazy-E likes it or not. Chavo clearly wanted to join the group here, but Eddie didn't ask him to do so. So Chavo storms off as Psychosis gets his Latino World Order shirt. Val Venis takes on Mark Mero next in the IC title tournament. On Nitro, Scott Steiner cuts a promo. Before the Raw match, Vince McMahon watches on as The Undertaker makes his way into the arena. You can bet your last dollar that the chairman's really keeping an eye out for Stone Cold Steve Austin. Venis says the big Val Boski's like a clock. Stick 2 hands and a face on it and he'll tell you exactly what time it is. That's disgusting behaviour, isn't it?
He's an animal!
An animal! An animal!
Mero comes out along with Jacqueline, and there it is, the Women's Championship belt. Finally. Venis kicks the action off with a power slam, and Mero replies with a great looking DDT. Venis then takes a back body drop, and Mero delivers a Samoan drop. Mero has this one, all he needs to do is go up for the more velocity, but Terry Runnels gets on the apron to cause a distraction. Mark ends up turning around, and he walks right into a Val Venis fisherman suplex, and Mero loses by pinfall, even though his shoulder was clearly up throughout the whole cover. Here's the tournament bracket so far. Remember, we don't know who's going to compete in the other 2 matches because Mr. McMahon wants to keep it a super duper secret. Jacqueline makes Terry pay for her crimes against Mero, and Mrs. Runnels takes a beating. Officials have to run down to break it up, and Terry looks a little shocked as Jackie heads back up the ramp. Jackie maybe thought she had a good night after beating Terry up for a bit, but backstage she ends up getting jumped by Sable. Sable hasn't forgotten last week, and Jackie's making it hard to forget, seeing as she's wearing Sable's hair in her own ponytail. So Sable attacks Jackie back out in the arena, and again officials have to run in to break it up. Before we move on, we also learned that Paul Bearer has returned to Raw. Paul enters the arena and Mr. McMahon doesn't look too amused. It's anyone's guess what Paul's intentions are tonight, but it should be interesting. On Monday Nitro, Scotty Steiner rips into Chicago before saying he could take any woman in this arena, lay her down horizontally and give her satisfaction. What he can't do is understand what Judy Bagwell was playing at last week. Scott says he's talked to Buff and he's convinced young Marcus that Scotty Steiner's really the stuff. He's convinced Buff to keep his mum out of NWO business, and Judy's also been convinced to stay at home, do the laundry and mop the floors. Scott says he and Buff are on the same page, but Buff and Judy think otherwise. Mother and son march down to the ring and the audience chant Buff's name when the two get inside the ropes. Buff says he's not on the same page as Scott, and Buff actually has a problem with Scott. Scott says he'll break Buff's neck in a heartbeat if he needs to, and Buff explained that he listened to Big Judy and she's right. This has all gone way too far and it's all Scotty's fault. So Scott calls Buff a mummy's boy, and Scott says he should have slapped Judy last week when he had the chance. He says, and I quote, he'll put that old scallywag on the mat if Marcus doesn't get out of the ring right now. So Buff attacks Scotty, and Scotty replies with a low blow. Steiner then drops his old friend across the top rope neck first, and Buff looks hurt. So hurt that Judy Bagwell thinks it's hilarious as her son rolls around in pain. Judy was so good on the last episode of Nitro 2. This week she must have been hanging out with Warrior and Brutus Beefcake. Steiner wants to know if there's any more Bagwells at home that Big Papa Pump can beat up. Unlike Buff Bagwell, Scotty Steiner's NWO for life. We then cut over to the Horsemen skybox, and they're up there eating food, drinking themselves into oblivion, and partying with your mom and her friends from the book reading club. Looks like a fantastic party. I wish I was there. Juventud Guerrera takes on Prince Iaukea next on Nitro. On Raw, we've got Mankind versus Mark Henry. Before Raw went on the air, Mankind gave Michael Cole an interview, and it was revealed here that Mick faces Ken Shamrock at Judgment Day. Mankind made fun of Shamrock's wishy-washy, wimpy, and weak chair shots, so he's not really all that concerned about the world's most dangerous man. Mankind has one word for Kenny Boy: Socko. Mark Henry, meanwhile, has written a poem for China. It goes, Macho Man is savage, Hulk Hogan is woody. China, you are adorable, I want to tickle your nose. Mark overpowers Mick and Foley takes a big right hand in the corner, and just then China walks out into the arena to a great pop from the audience. Mick takes a gorilla press slam, Mark then performs a splash while aiming for Mick's knee, and China watches on as Mark performs a body slam. Mark misses a middle rope splash, but the damage has been done to Mick's knee and ankle. He falls when Irish whipped, and Mark goes in for the kill. But still, somehow Mick's able to hit his double arm DDT, and then he takes his shoe off. Mr. Socko makes his in-ring debut, and that stinky sock gets stuck down Mark's throat. Mankind defeats Mark Henry, and Mankind advances in the IC title tournament. China gets in the ring after the match and she wants to know what Mark wants. Why is Mark doing this, and why has he brought in this ridiculous lawsuit? Mark just says it's out of his hands, and he leaves China standing in the middle of the ring. After the match, Steve Austin arrives to Raw in a cement truck. Michael Cole interviews Austin, and Steve tells Cole to go get that one-legged bastard Vince McMahon because what he's about to do might cause a little interest. We cut over to Vince, and the chairman can't believe that Austin's arrived to Raw in this cement truck, of all things. Sergeant Slaughter says he'll go check things out, but he ends up falling on top of Vince. How clumsy. On Nitro, we've got Juvi versus Prince Iaukea, and yeah, it's Juvi versus Prince Iaukea, alright. Good in the ring, but absolutely nothing we haven't seen before. Disco Inferno comes out at the opening bell. He tells Juventud that no one cares about this match. The people want to see Disco dance, so Disco's music begins to play and Prince Iaukea knocks him off the apron. Brilliant. As the match gets underway, Kidman shows up. He grabs a steel chair and he chases Disco away from the ring. Back inside the ropes, Prince Iaukea diving pin attempt thing didn't look all that hot. What was this? Diving schoolboy pin? Who cares? I know what that is though, that's a chinlock. And I know what that is, that's chinlock number 2. Unfortunately, Prince Iaukea has no balls, so he doesn't pull off chinlock number 3. Disco Inferno makes his way back down to the ring as Juvi begins to turn it around. Guerrera pulls off a springboard dropkick and Prince also takes a body slam. Disco stops Guerrera from performing the 450 splash, and that in-grade Prince Iaukea smacks Disco off the apron again. Joke's on you, pal, because Prince walks straight into a Juvi driver and Juventud wins another one on Monday Nitro. Kidman comes back out and Disco gets beaten all the way back up the ramp. We still aren't sure who the number 1 contender is for the Cruiserweight belt, but we'll get a resolution at Halloween Havoc. Jeff Jarrett takes on X-Pac next on Raw, while Kevin Nash cuts a promo on Nitro. This is another IC title tournament match on Raw, and it starts with Jarrett attacking X-Pac before the opening bell. Pac then takes one of those great corner bumps that Lenny Lane's afraid of taking, but he's able to come back with a clothesline. A backdrop slows X-Pac down a little, but he's right back up with a spinning back kick, followed by a jumping clothesline. Waltman goes upstairs for a high-risk move. He successfully fights Jarrett off when Double J tries to stop him, but it didn't matter. X-Pac still misses his top rope senton. We see a power slam from Jeff Jarrett. X-Pac replies with his corner kicks, but the referee takes a bump when Pac gets down from the middle rope. This lets Jarrett kick X-Pac right in his little six balls when Pac goes for a Bronco Buster, and Jarrett decides it's time to draw 0 dimes by grabbing his guitar. This week his guitar's in a lovely case. He opens it up and it's head. The surprise of getting head instead of a guitar leads to Jarrett getting pinned, and X-Pac advances in this tournament. Al Snow comes out to retrieve head. Jim Ross says Al just outsmarted Jarrett here, and there you have it. The Raw contests have been very short this week. They need to pack in a lot of matches, but thankfully the main event gets a decent amount of time. More on that in a moment. Big FUBU Kevin Nash walks down to the ring and he says he's been watching Scott Hall stagger around backstage as usual. Scott Hall's touched Kev's last nerve, and seeing as Nash used to work as a bouncer, he's got experience with drunks trying to act tough. So Kevin says the words that Scott Hall hates to hear. It's last call. Time for Scott to come out and wake up. Hall makes an appearance and he says if it's last call, he'll have a double in 6 to go. Kevin Nash doesn't look amused as Scott puts his drink down and he offers him a fight. Not here, but down there. Nash is already hurt enough and he chases his best friend back through the curtain, but Scott moves pretty quick for a guy who's at the bottom of a bottle. We go outside and we see Scott hanging out of a limousine laughing at Big Sexy. So Nash gets in his Cadillac and we get ourselves a car chase. Bobby Heenan says this is just like the Blues Brothers driving around Chicago. Steve Austin cuts a promo next on Raw, while over on Nitro we've got Chris Jericho versus Raven. Sounds good. Before coming to the ring, Austin puts that cement truck to good use. We get another frequently replayed moment of the Monday Night War here when Stone Cold fills up McMahon's Corvette with cement, and it's absolutely glorious. No one predicted the window shattering the way they did, and it did look pretty awesome. It's a shame there were a million camera cuts, but replays on documentaries have included more of the footage, as you can see right here. Stone Cold makes his way to the ring. He thanks Mr. McMahon for the invite tonight, and Stone Cold says when Vince screwed him at Breakdown, he cemented his own fate. Vince can rest assured that Stone Cold Steve Austin will continue to make his life a living hell. Austin thinks he'll make a great referee this Sunday at Judgment Day, but he also says the only hand he's going to hold up at the end of the pay-per-view is his own, and there's nothing Vince McMahon can do about it. McMahon wheels his ass out to the stage, but check it out, Vince has backup, some puppers and some big dude. Austin knows he shouldn't get close to these dogs, so he keeps his distance. McMahon says Austin just ruined his Corvette collection by dumping cement in one of his cars, and Vince announces that Stone Cold's gonna wrestle tonight in the Raw main event. Austin's gonna team up with The Rock to face The Undertaker and Kane, and Vince also says that Austin's gonna need eyes in the back of his head tonight in that match. McMahon says things have been tough for him lately. Ever since Austin drove that Zamboni into the ring, McMahon's never been the same. He was attacked by Stone Cold, the Brothers of Destruction wrecked his ankle, and now Vince may never play polo again. He may never ride a horse again. He may never compete in an athletic competition again, and he holds Steve Austin personally responsible. Vince also says his head's still ringing after getting struck with the bedpan last week in the hospital. His nerves are wrecked after the defibrillation, and as for McMahon's rectal area, Austin violated the chairman. He humiliated the chairman. So Vince is going to do the same to Stone Cold this Sunday. If Austin doesn't raise the hand of the new WWF Champion at Judgment Day, he's gonna get fired. McMahon says this is a guarantee, and we all know that McMahon's guarantees hold a lot of weight. Austin says McMahon doesn't have the balls to fire Stone Cold, and McMahon says he has balls the size of grapefruits, and Austin's gonna pick the seeds out of his teeth at the pay-per-view. McMahon guarantees that Austin's gonna get humbled. The easy way is for Stone Cold to raise the winner's hand this Sunday, or the hard way is getting fired by Vince McMahon on the spot. Again, these two just knock it out of the park, and Mr. McMahon in particular was fantastic here. He's so unlikable, yet he's so entertaining, and it just makes for good fun TV. Switching over to Nitro, I have high hopes for this Raven vs Chris Jericho bout. This match is for the TV title. Raven gives a clean break in the corner, the two then have a long lockup that leads to both men falling out of the ring, and the commentators talk about how different Raven's been lately, almost like he's more laid back, but it's putting him on a downward trend. Raven gets tossed into the guardrail, but back in the ring he pulls off an excellent dropkick while Chris held onto a chair. Raven then sets the chair up in between the top and middle turnbuckles and... my god. Jericho runs at Raven on the outside, but he ends up smacking the ring post. Raven throws another chair in the ring and he sets up the drop toe hold. He pulls the move off and it looks like we might be seeing a new TV champ tonight. Unfortunately, Raven takes too long posing to the audience before going for the even flow. Jericho counters it easy with a lion tamer, and Chris Jericho wins via submission. Bobby Heenan says that something's not right, this isn't the same Raven, and I agree. Rick Steiner cuts a promo next on Nitro. On Raw, it's the first semi-final match in the IC title tournament, Val Venis vs Ken Shamrock. Kenny Boy attacks Val Venis during the entrances, and really, Shamrock stayed in control for the majority of the match following this early advantage. Terry watches on as Venis gets his head taken off with a clothesline. Shamrock pulls off a body slam, and Venis gets put in a camel clutch as the referee tries to get Ken to back off for a moment and give this guy a break. Venis tries to fight back with a big boot, but he gets put down again with ease, and Shamrock follows up with a suplex. A back suplex makes the big Valboski wish he didn't get out of bed this morning, and Shamrock applies a Boston Crab in hopes of making Venis tap out. But Venis makes it to the ropes before putting everything he has into one last comeback attempt. Shamrock takes a knee to the midsection followed by a Russian leg sweep. Venis is able to hit another big boot, a back elbow and an elbow drop, but that's all he's gonna do in this match. Shamrock goes down low and he takes Venis out at the knees. He then applies the ankle lock, and that's all she wrote. Ken Shamrock advances to the finals. So the winner of Mankind vs X-Pac faces Kenny Boy, and the winner becomes the new WWF IC champion. Ken Shamrock leaves, but Val Venis' night is far from over. We hear Goldust's music play in the arena, and there he is. Goldust is back, and it's not the artist formerly known as Goldust, it's the old Goldust with a slightly updated look. Goldust gets in the ring and Venis can't run and he can't hide. That ankle's in a bad way and Goldust is going to take his time messing Venis around a bit. Venis takes a few right hands before getting set up for the Shattered Dreams. Goldust shouts F you before kicking Venis so hard that the big Valboski penetrates Venis' own brain, and the crowd absolutely loved it. Goldust is back, ladies and gents. Let's see if the WWF can recapture the character they lost in mid to late 1997. Right, so Rick Steiner gets in the ring for an interview with Mean Gene Okerlund, but he gets interrupted by that laugh track again. This time though, we find out who's behind it, and it's Chucky. Yes, that Chucky from the Child's Play movies. If fans were expecting a new wrestler on the WCW roster, then they would have been disappointed, but I guess fans of Chucky were amused. A little. This was all basically an advertising campaign for Bride of Chucky, and the crowd boo when they realise this. But anyway, Chucky appears on the screen and he tells Mean Gene to shut up. Rick tells Chucky to get down to the ring if he wants to fight, and I would have paid good money to see that match. Chucky says Rick likes to play with dolls. Rick's mom told Chucky as much. But Rick likes gentle dolls, not evil dolls like Chucky. Chucky would like to twist Rick's head off, bend and break his arms, and let a dog chew on him just like an old raggedy doll. That's wonderful. And if fans want to see a real pro in action, they should go to the cinema to see Bride of Chucky. Chucky tells Rick not to hurt his brother Scott. Chucky wants to direct, and Scott's going to have the leading role in his new movie. So Rick needs to back off and leave his brother alone. It's not for me, honestly. Seeing Rick threaten a doll is quite humorous, but there you have it, Chucky on WCW Nitro. The fans in attendance absolutely hated it too. This Chicago crowd's been quite tough tonight, no doubt about it. Mick Foley's trying to help Mr. McMahon out. He says the Corvette can be salvaged. All Mick needs is the car key. Slaughter says there's a briefcase in there, but Foley doesn't care. He tries to get the keys and he has no luck. Mr. McMahon just wants Foley to go away. The Rock then cuts a backstage promo before our next match. He tells Michael Cole he can hang around and listen to what the Great One has to say, but seconds later he changes his mind and he tells Cole to get lost. Rock says he's beaten Undertaker and Kane in the middle of the ring before. He doesn't sweat the brothers. What he is concerned about though is being Stone Cold Steve Austin's partner in this main event. Rock doesn't get a chance to finish his promo because he gets interrupted by his Nation teammates Stilo and Mark Henry. The boys aren't too happy with Rock teaming with Austin, and Rock isn't too happy about being interrupted. So the Great One leaves with Stilo and Henry to discuss matters further away from the cameras. Mick Foley and X-Pac compete in the IC title tournament next, while Eric Bichoff tries to get rid of Ric Flair once and for all. X-Pac's hurting from earlier on. He takes a back suplex and Mankind throws down in the corner. Pac's able to hit Mick with a spinning heel kick, but he ends up getting dumped out of the ring, and this is where Waltman doesn't want to be. X-Pac takes a ring step bump before Mick goes looking for a steel chair. The referee's able to stop Mick from hitting X-Pac in the middle of the ring, but Mick ends up taking a few corner kicks followed by a Bronco Buster. The Bronco Buster seems to set Mick off as he jumps from the corner to savagely attack X-Pac. There is no finesse as he grabs Kid's head just to slam him right back down on the mat, and X-Pac ends up getting sent out of the ring following a knee lift. On the outside, X-Pac takes a swinging neckbreaker, and then Ken Shamrock shows up to get a closer look at the action. Or at least that's what we thought. As Mick tries to get back in the ring, Shamrock hits him on the ankle with a chair, and X-Pac covers Mankind for the win. X-Pac faces Ken Shamrock in the tournament final. On Nitro, Eazy-E says he owns the arena tonight. It's the Bischoff Center. Bischoff runs WCW and he leased the building, so Ric Flair has to leave whether he's friends with Bruce McArthur or not. Bischoff tells Double D and James J. Bebe Dillon to get down to the ring. The two step inside the ropes and Bischoff says he's going to give JJ a lesson in being an executive. Doug Dillinger is going to escort Bischoff up to that skybox, and Ric Flair's getting thrown out of the arena. Dillinger and Bischoff walk through the audience, and Bischoff gets smacked with a nice cold beverage. What a great shot. Bischoff's hair is completely soaked as he walks through the arena hallways, and he arrives at the door of the suite where this guy thinks it's all incredibly funny. Look at him, this is absolute comedy gold. Bruce comes out and he says he tried to be nice to Eric, but enough's enough. This is a private party, it has nothing to do with the rental of the building, and Eric explains that he leased the arena, so what Eric says goes. Bruce isn't going to budge. It's his private suite, it's his arena. Flair and the Horsemen aren't going anywhere, and Bischoff needs to hit the bricks. Bischoff then shoves MacArthur and security jump Eric. Eric tries to resist, but it's no good. He's going to get thrown out, and Ric Flair can't wait to see it. Security carry Eric back through the corridors and they bring him into an elevator, and the commentators think this is brilliant. Tony Schiavone's having a great old time at the commentary desk. Speaking of having a good time, look at these horny old bastards in the skybox. Not only is Bruce sucking the face off your mom's best friend, he also thinks he's a horseman. Again, Tony Schiavone thinks this is the greatest thing in the world. This is the best day of his professional life. We then see Eric getting escorted around on the ground floor, and look, this crack team of security guards don't know where they're going. They have to do a U-turn because they're totally lost. Well done, lads. Finally, Eric gets brought to a police car and he gets brought to the Slammer. He's going to get well acquainted with the criminals and dirtbags from the main streets of Chicago. X-Pac vs Shamrock's already underway on Raw. On Nitro, Bill Goldberg defends his WCW Championship against the Giant. Goldberg's music plays in the arena, and look at this dude. The commentators picked up on this guy too because they snicker quite a bit when the camera cuts over to Goldberg backstage. Maybe he has a condition, so let's not be assholes about it. Maybe his hands were just cramping up, or maybe he was thinking about feeling some big bazongas after the show. The two competitors get in the ring, no one gets the advantage after the initial lockup, and Goldberg meows at the Giant after taking a chop. Giant pulls off a dropkick, the champ takes a corner clothesline followed by a Russian leg sweep, and Goldberg comes back by ramming the Giant's head on the top turnbuckle. Goldberg delivers a back kick, he then body slams the Giant and the crowd goes nuts, and Goldberg lines up a spear. Stevie Ray then shows up and Goldberg gets hit with a steel chair. The champ no-sells it, but he still ends up walking straight into a chokeslam. Slam. DDP shows up to break the follow-up cover, and he also hits Stevie Ray with a diamond cutter. And just before the Giant can chokeslam Page, Goldberg hits the big man with a spear. The Giant falls out of the ring, and Goldberg wins via countout. DDP leaves the ring too, and the commentators say this is a milestone victory. 150 wins for Bill Goldberg. Well, since the last time we checked in, Goldberg defeated Raven on the October 1st episode of Thunder. He then had 3 house show matches against the Giant on the 9th, 10th and 11th of October, and he then defeated the Giant again here on Nitro. So Goldberg is not at 150 wins, he's at 144 wins. Goldberg was also challenged by Chris Jericho on the previous episode of Thunder, the October 8th episode, but Goldberg didn't even bother showing up for the match. Jericho accepted this as a victory, and Chris said he's now 3-0 against Greenberg, but obviously this doesn't count towards our final number. On Raw, Shamrock launches an early attack on Waltman. He puts X-Pac in a head scissors and the referees have to come down to break it up. Keep in mind, we still haven't heard the opening bell. Mick Foley wants to help X-Pac, but the Stooges, for some reason, pull Mick away from the ring. Shamrock eventually releases the head scissors, and when we come back from a commercial break, Triple H has came down to help out his friend. X-Pac still wants to fight, but he's in a bad way. Triple H joins the commentary table as Shamrock hits X-Pac with a DDT. Hunter says we shouldn't count X-Pac out just yet as Kid lays in a few chops, but then Shamrock floors Pac with a clothesline. Kenny Boy focuses on X-Pac's neck by dropping him on the top rope and laying in a few stiff shots while Pac's draped over the apron. Shamrock then applies a dragon sleeper from the outside and X-Pac screams in agony. It looks like Kid hasn't got a hope in hell. Hunter complains directly to Vince McMahon next, saying he only found out about this tournament by watching WWF TV, and he does seem legitimately pissed off about it too. X-Pac finally fights back with a standing heel kick followed by a spinning wheel kick, but X-Pac's slow when trying to follow up. Still, he is able to hit his Bronco Buster, but he's too hurt afterwards. He holds his neck and Shamrock smells blood, so the world's most dangerous man goes for the ankle lock and X-Pac has to fight and claw to make it to the bottom rope. Shamrock pulls Pac back and he applies the ankle lock again, and that's going to be the end of it. X-Pac gets pulled away from the ropes and he has no choice but to tap out. Triple H doesn't look happy. Mick Foley comes out again to make sure Shamrock doesn't attack X-Pac, but Shamrock leaves the ring as the tournament winner and the new WWF Intercontinental Champion. We have 2 tag team matches in the main event, Undertaker and Kane versus Rock and Austin, and we've also got Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan versus Sting and The Warrior. The star power is absolutely off the charts, but as mentioned earlier, don't get your hopes up in a hurry. The guys make their entrances on Nitro. Warrior's going to wrestle in jeans tonight while wearing his coat because he's the Ultimate Warrior and he can do whatever he likes. He transfers his powers to the Stinger by placing his hand on Sting's head and zapping the energy over. There's no way the Stinger's going to lose now, guys. Never mind. Hollywood punches Sting a few times and the Icon gets choked out at the ropes. Sting fires back with a clothesline and an atomic drop, and after taking a few shots in the corner, Hulk tags out and the Hitman comes in. Bret takes 10 punches in the corner, but Hogan comes in to cause a distraction. Sting takes a low blow from His Excellency, and now it's the usual hot tag game where the babyface needs to get to his partner. The Hitman delivers a second rope elbow drop and he talks trash to Warrior. Hogan's able to come in and take over while the referee's busy, and Sting takes another low blow. That's both balls completely wrecked. Hulk chokes out the Stinger. He stands on Sting's head. The Warrior tries to pump Sting up a bit, but that doesn't work out too well. And then Bret Hart and Hulk team up to do some damage in the corner. It's absolute domination from the Hitman and the Woodmaster. A leg drop from Bret gets followed up with a backbreaker. The break then comes when Hart misses an elbow drop. The Warrior gets that hot tag and Bret just has to stand there while Warrior feels the power. Bret then takes a few clotheslines. Warrior signals for the press slam, but Hogan comes in to save Bret, and now the Warrior's all pissed off. Hogan shouts, "Oh no," as the Warrior approaches him, and then the NWO come down and we have a DQ finish. Didn't see that one coming. The Warrior and Sting take a beating while Bret throws toilet paper into the audience. Things don't look too good for our heroes, but the Warrior's sweet gungy fills up the ring, and Warrior doesn't disappear. Pretty sure the timing was off in this one, but the NWO just dump Warrior out of the ring while Sting comes back in to lay out a few NWO goons. The show ends with Warrior chasing the NWO back up the ramp while Hogan gets his back whipped. Warrior then turns around and it looks like he's about to cry. Not the best night for the Ultimate One, not by a long shot. Right, the competitors make their way to the ring on Raw, and it starts off as a good old-fashioned brawl. Rock and Austin get the better of their opponents, with Kane ending up on the outside, and this allows Rock and Austin to team up for a double back elbow. Awesome seeing this, knowing what would end up happening between these two. Austin hits Undertaker with a clothesline, and not to be outdone, the Deadman fires back with his jumping clothesline. It's at this moment when Paul Bearer begins walking down to the ring, and nobody knows what Paul may do here. No one knows whose side he's on. Undertaker has the advantage in the ring, but he asks Kane why is Studley Paul standing at ringside. So we assume Taker wants nothing to do with the guy who banged his mom. Austin's able to turn it around and Taker gets his leg wrapped around the ring post. Rock then tags in, and we see a brilliant people's elbow, and Undertaker sits up and Rock puts him right back down. It's so good. Kane saves the match by breaking up the cover, and Rock's unable to hit the Deadman with a rock bottom. Instead, Undertaker performs a chokeslam, and Kane comes in with a short arm clothesline to the People's Champ. We then see D'Lo and Mark Henry walking down the ring as the camera focuses on Paul Bearer. The Brothers of Destruction begin making quick tags that keep Rock away from his corner. Rock does deliver a DDT, and we think Rock's going to tag out, but Kane gets right back up and Rocky takes another clothesline. Rock then gets draped over the top rope, and Kane delivers a flying punch. The Brothers then choke Rock out, and after a brief scuffle on the outside, Kane brings the chin action to the Raw main event. Rock fights out, he hits a big Samoan drop on Kane. Austin gets that all-important tag, and the Rattlesnake fires up on The Undertaker. The Nation then officially disband when D'Lo and Mark Henry attack the Rock on the outside, so that faction is now completely done with. It's quite an unceremonious ending to the group, but any ending's better than no ending at all. Still, the fight in the ring continues on, and Austin delivers a Luthez press. Stone Cold's then forced to fight both brothers all on his own, and if that's not enough, McMahon's new security guy runs down and Austin takes a shot with his nightstick. It's the big boss man. Ray Trailer's back in WWF after an admittedly mediocre run in WCW. Bossman watches on as Kane and Taker beat up Austin. The referee calls for the bell, so it's another DQ finish, and Vince McMahon's then seen at the entranceway. He's enjoying the destruction of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Raw ends with Undertaker applying a leg lock to the Rattlesnake. To find out what happens next, join me for Judgment Day this Sunday. Raw wins Reliving the War this week. The tournament matches were good and they weren't dragged out at all. It's easy to get tired of seeing the same guys in these one-night tournaments, but this one was paced quite well for a Monday Night Wrestling show. Austin and Vince McMahon were brilliant as always, and Raw had some good returns with Goldust and the Big Boss Man showing up. On Nitro, I wish Jericho vs Raven was a bit longer. The stuff with Flair and Bischoff could have been dealt with a lot quicker and not spread out over the whole show. And the only real good thing I can say about the main event is at least it got in the ring, unlike last week's effort. Raw's now on 74 points, Nitro's on 64, and we have got 17 ties on the board. In the TV ratings, Raw won with a 4.8, while Nitro posted a 4.6. 5 title matches take place at Judgment Day, including the big WWF title main event bout. McMahon's guaranteed that Austin's going to get humbled one way or another, so join me later in the week and we'll see what happens at the pay-per-view. As always, thank you very much for watching. I'll be planning a short break for Reliving the War very soon too, but I'll keep you updated on that in future episodes. Make sure you're subscribed so you can keep up with the channel community posts, or follow me on Twitter for updates. Thanks again for watching guys, I really do appreciate it. And take care.